Right, this is the Green Party manifesto, the full PDF version. I'm going to take you on a wee bit later and show you why the Green movement is dangerous for agenda-driven reasons, but I'm going to show you some of the things they're saying in their manifesto and how it would link to everyday life. One of the things that's in the Green Party manifesto is, now, on the far right you've got like war and arms dealing, and that contributes to the globalisation, the globalist world plan for the New World Order. Now, on the far left, you've got the Green Movement, and that is also taking you towards the same destination, the globalist world plan and the New World Order. If you don't know about all of that stuff, you might not be up to speed with it and up to date with it. I'll try and scratch the surface for you here now, but it's lots of information out there for you, lots and lots of detail about things, but I'm going to take you to some of the more kind of prime points that stick out, the people who do know about the New World Order and do know about the neo-left, they'll be able to understand what I mean. So, one of the things in the Green Party manifesto pledges: make achieving international agreement and action to limit climate change to below 2 degrees Celsius of warming the major foreign policy priority. Okay, the Earth, biodiversity, making sure the Earth's alright, it sounds good in theory. UK biodiversity is threatened by development and agricultural practices, intensive farming, the draining of wetlands and the deforestation of hills. Right, okay, so there's a red flag to industry there. If you're a farmer, the Greens are coming after you. Overfishing is a problem, but it's the EU which allows the overfishing, and I've shown that in a previous video. UKIP are the only ones that's offering a solution on that, because you've got the 200 nautical miles rule if we're not part of the EU, so we'll be able to, everyone is able to come here and fish our fish, and that's what's causing the overfishing. The Green Party will put policies in place that will stop us treating other species and the wider environment as a means to the satisfaction of humans only. Now, the reason that I'm bringing that up is because I've got information to show later on which is showing how if you apply these things in a agenda-driven way, it's actually harmful for humans and harmful for our living standards, and although it's, as I say, it's nice in theory to care for the animals and to care for the environment, but in practice we are animals too, and there's basically no getting around it that we do influence our environment, and we live in our environment also. But does that mean that we're going to take our living standards back to the Dark Ages just to satisfy the Green movement? So here we are, the Climate Change Act. If the global temperature rise can be kept at 2 degrees Celsius, runaway or disastrous climate change can be avoided. Many countries and civil society organisations argue that the international goal should be kept to 1.5 degrees of warming, highlighting the severity of climate impacts we are already seeing. So what I'm going to be going on and saying is that although the face of it is quite nice and friendly, if you were allowed a Green Party to come into power, you would actually see behind the scenes it's really quite dark and agenda driven. So they're not even close to getting power right now, and they're already saying, well, that 2 degrees thing, we want to scare you a wee bit more and say it should actually be 1.5. So they're already trying to scare you, and they not even remotely close to getting power. To meet the 2 degree target, the world needs to limit global emissions over the rest of the century to about 1,000 gigatons. Current projections have us exceeding that figure by 2040, leading to the devastating average warming of around 4 degrees. Right, to meet the 2 degree target, the world needs to limit total global emissions over the rest of the century. So I'm going to be showing you information probably a wee bit further on that's saying that the Green movement is really an agenda-driven global world order. They're basically trying to get you signed up to the New World Order. That's the neo-left that's trying to get you signed up to the New World Order. And the neo-right will try and get you signed up to the New World Order in different ways, maybe perhaps by scaring you with terrorism and saying the terrorists are going to come to get you if you don't sign up some kind of, international security plan. Then the terrorists will just run riot and all that kind of stuff. The left are basically doing the same thing, but they're saying if you don't sign up to a global organisation, a global world agenda, then the world's going to blow up, the world's going to explode, we're all going to die, the world's going to be left with no animals and no beings. So what they're saying, one of the main things in their whole manifesto is that they're going to meet a 2-degree target, make the British people meet a 2-degree target. But even at their own admission is that if it's actually going to be successful, everybody in the whole world is going to need to do this. I don't really know how the Green Party are going to achieve getting industrialised China and the industrialised third world to limiting their carbon emissions down enough so that the Greens are happy. I'll show you a wee bit later as well that the scientific data which actually says that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the relating rise in temperatures, or I'm going to show you scientific information that basically disproves that. It's a mixed bag. We actually don't know. It's just a mixed bag. Sometimes the Earth is a bit warmer and sometimes it's a bit cooler, and it's mostly driven by the sun. The sun goes through periods where it's warmer and it goes through periods where it's a bit cooler, and when it's warmer we know that it's warmer because it lets off lots of solar flares, and that is the main driver of temperature on the Earth. It's not really anything to do with how much carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is actually helpful for the plants to grow. It's plant food, but I'll take you that stuff and I'll show you that later on. Anyway, one of the main things that the Greens are saying that they're going to do, basically it can't actually be achieved unless the whole world signs up to it. And I don't think the Green Party from the UK are going to have much success in getting industrialised Germany, industrialised China, industrialised India to sign up to that, and it's not going to be successful. I don't think they're going to have the negotiating power to do that using energy wisely. Okay, so here we go. This is an important part. Carbon quotas, how they would work. So what they're saying is that in the future, you've got your smart meters, right? So we're seeing a centralisation of energy, so I can maybe take you and show you some of that later on. But so the carbon quotas would be anything that produces carbon, which is a stunning amount of things. You'll have a quota that ideally you should be meeting every year. So the fairest way to share emissions rights equally, so we support the idea of an economy-wide system of carbon quotas with everyone guaranteed the same basic entitlement regardless of wealth. Those who use less than this could sell some of their quota to those who use more, rewarding their carbon thrift. About half the available carbon units could be distributed free of charge to all adults in the country. The rest of the carbon units could be sold by the government to companies and other organisations. Whenever you bought fossil fuels or electricity, your carbon account card would be debited. You would be able to sell extra carbon units or buy extra units if you needed to. So things that produce carbon in your home is your radiators, your heating, everything that you use that's based on electricity, your lighting, just basically everything that you do in your home that's not just you sitting on your bed staring at the four walls. Everything that you do in your home that is not you sitting in your bed staring at your four walls produces carbon, and the Greens want you to scale back on that quite considerably, and they're going to sign you up to a carbon quota. So they're going to be micromanaging your life, or they're going to be forcing you to micromanage your own life. So that's two of the main things that's in the actual Green Party manifesto. What I was saying about the friendly face of the Green movement, right? And already, even in the Green Party manifesto, they were saying, well, we want to limit to 2 degrees, but really, we should be pushing you to 1.5. 1.5 degrees of warming. Behind their friendly face lies a dark exterior that is just willing to pounce out, and if they got power, then they would really get their claws in there. They would really become authoritarian, mindless authoritarians. So let me take you to resolve an exploration into the carbon footprint of UK households. So this is how the Green Movement really thinks behind its closed doors. If the UK is to achieve a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions of at least 80% by 2050 on 1990 levels, in line with the nation's Climate Change Act, it is imperative that policymakers understand the drivers of UK emissions. They want the emissions to reduce by 80% by 2050. The aim of this paper is to look at the composition of the carbon footprint of an average UK household. Okay, so here we go. Right, here's some of it. Our results show, for example, that around 10% of the carbon footprint is due to holidays, with total recreation and leisure activities, including holidays, accounting for well over a quarter, 27% of all household emissions. So, holidays are bad. According to the Greens and the Green Movement, holidays are bad. It's a use of 27% of household emissions, so you're going to have to be cutting back on that under your carbon quota. And if you're not cutting back on it, you're going to be paying through the nose. You'll be paying basically whatever you pay on your holidays, you'll be paying an extra, basically a carbon tax on top of that to get you'll be needing to buy carbon quota points for you to actually go on holiday. So it's just basically a stealth tax, a hidden tax. Other notable results are that food and catering accounts for nearly a quarter of emissions, 24%. I don't know whether their figures seem a bit out, but we'll just go with it. So, eating out is bad. So, going on holidays is bad, and eating out is bad. Emissions due to a meal eaten out are around 71 to 83% higher than for a meal eaten in the home. So, restaurateurs better be watching out for the Greens. And even here they're admitting the UK has a formidable challenge to meet its legally binding target to reduce greenhouse gases by at least 80% by 2050. It is becoming increasingly evident that all consumers in the UK must play a part in achieving these required reductions. So that's the government putting the pressure on you. This is what they consider to be bad, basically. Things that they will be looking for people to cut down on in the future if they're going to meet the 80% reduction by 2050. And they even admit it's going to be hard, so they're saying that the pressure is mostly going to be on the consumer, so that's you. Most of this 80% pressure is going to be on you. Recreation and leisure, holidays, non-holiday recreation and leisure. Do you know what that is? That's like working out, going to the gym. Food and catering, eating in, eating out. They're even worried about how much food you're eating and the ways that you're cooking it. Clothing and footwear, embedded emissions in items of clothing and footwear, care of clothing, travel to shops for clothes shopping. So, how are you getting to the shops? What kind of clothes are you buying? Household, fabric of household furnishings, household services, lighting, space heating, commuting, health and hygiene. Even your health is considered to be Maybe if the pharmaceuticals that you need for your ailments are produced in a high carbon emission fashion, then you're probably going to be considered to be a high carbon user. You might be needing to use up your carbon quota if your health's really bad. Education, communications. So there's really nothing that they're not interested in. There's really nothing that they don't want to micromanage. They don't want to outsource the micromanaging of your own life to you, and if you're not doing it well enough, who knows, maybe they'll be coming in and they'll be taking over for you. Well, let's get an idea of some of the kind of things that are included. So electricity is a carbon, produces carbon. Your car, vehicles, other forms of general transportation, so probably going to be, if you own the train system, if you own buses, it's probably going to be bad for your business for the Greens to be in power. The shipping industry, don't know how these industries are going to survive if the Greens are in power. The trucking industry, manufacturing, again there, that's bringing up China. How are you going to get China if that is the basically the main source of their entire economy, manufacturing? Then how are you realistically going to say to them, you need to cut down 80% by 2050? The Chinese are going to say, alright, yeah, do we? Good luck with that. Wood burning stoves and home heating oil, so wood burners are very popular. The agar cookers and things like that, they're very popular. They're considered to be a luxury item. Lots of middle class people go for the agars. They're very good things, so you'll be using up a lot of your carbon quota on that if you enjoy that. Animals, the Greens are at a bit of a loss here, because they're saying they're going to protect animals, but the fundamental core aspects of what they want to do sees animals as useless carbon emission providers. Gardening, farming equipment powered by gasoline or diesel. Wow, farmers are going to be in real big trouble if the Greens are around. They're going to be using up a lot of their carbon quota. It's going to become very expensive for farmers to be farmers under the Green plans. Let's have a look at household energy consumption. What kind of things? Your microwave oven, your washing machine, your tumble dryer. How does that affect to your actual daily life? Your microwave, your washing machine, your tumble dryer, your kettle, your oven, your dishwasher, your fridge freezer, your games console. All these things, if you've got carbon quota points, say you've got a big family, there's not much that you're going to be able to do about that, is there? Everyone's going to want to use these things, and you're going to be using these things much more than other people who use them. Interestingly enough, the alternative media who reports on what the elites want to do going towards the New World Order, part of the New World Order plan is depopulation, and they want control over how much children people are going to have. Some people probably agree with it, but it's just to prove to you that basically under the Green plans, if you've got a lot of children, you're going to be using up your carbon quota very, very quickly, and you'll be considered as in the Green movement. It'll probably in time, like 20 years from now, it'll be considered disgusting, culturally and socially disgusting, if you've got, say, more than one child. That's the way things seem to be going. All of this, if you're going to be basically charged for using all of these things, then basically you are going to end up having less children, let's face it. Televisions, if you've got let's see what the worst one is. If you've got a plasma 30, 40, 37 inch and it's on for 6.5 hours a day, that's costing you £62 a year, and you're producing 269 kilograms of CO2 a year. So I mean, they've broke it all down. It's very, very detailed. They're very, very interested in this movement and where it wants to go. What else? What's the next highest? An LCD 34 to 37 inch. So basically, in a big TV, you're maybe think how that's going to impact your life if you've got a carbon quota and you're paying income tax, you're paying various forms of taxation, you're paying VAT. It's going to affect poor people, and the Greens are saying that they want to lift poor people out of the quagmire, but poor people are usually the ones that end up having lots of children, isn't it? So they're going to be hit hard. Think how much you're going to have to micromanage your own life. I mean, Brits love their tea. Are you going to be thinking to yourself, oh, I'm not going to have a wee cup of tea because I'll use up my carbon quota? Basically anything that produces heat is going to be costing you a lot. The biggest there is your tumble dryer. So basically the Greens would be quite happy for you to go back to some kind of Victorian lifestyle, and they would be quite happy with that because you wouldn't be producing any carbon. So it's a direct threat on your lifestyle. So it's going to be a big threat to your standard of living. Your standard of living refers to the level of wealth, comfort, material goods and necessities available to a certain socio-economic class in a certain geographic area. So the Greens, where the Greens want to take the world, it's going to directly affect your standard of living. You're going to be micromanaging your own life to the point that it's going to basically, you're going to have to cut back on your standard of living. Your standard of living, your quality of life, is the general well-being of individuals, and society's quality of life has a wide range of context, including the fields of international development, healthcare, politics and employment. So what the Greens want to do in the first instance is reduce carbon emissions worldwide. They're a British party, and Britain, as we're seeing, is gradually losing its negotiating power in the world. They're somehow going to be chiming in there and saying, stop producing all the carbon. No, that's not going to happen. And I've shown you the resolve saying that it's a very hard thing to do. And it can be traced back to the consumer. So they're basically saying that 80% of this cutback that they're going to need is going to be resting on your shoulders. The main thing that the Greens want to do, it can't be achieved unless everybody in the world signs up to it. Seems silly to me. I wouldn't vote for that. And the next thing that they want to do is make you sign up to carbon quotas, so that even turning your heating on, heating your water, I'll take you and I'll show you some of that now actually. Right, how do we contribute individually to global warming? This is America, based on America. Let's just say that roughly America and Britain is roughly the same. How Americans produce carbon emissions. Heating is 47%. You're going to be cutting back on your heating. You're going to have a much colder house under the Greens, or you're going to be paying high premiums for it, stealth taxes on it, carbon taxes. Lighting and appliances is 25%. Hot water is 17%. Air conditioning is 6% in America, and refrigeration is 5%. So that's all the type of things that a normal household uses. So under the Greens, the attack on your standard of living, your quality of life, is going to be your house is going to be much colder, it's going to be much darker, you're going to have less hot baths and hot showers. I don't know what the equivalent would be in Britain to air conditioning. Probably that 6% is just added onto the heating, because we'll probably have much longer winters than America, and we probably don't use our heating that much in the summer, so that 6% is probably going to be pushing 47% up to 53%, so you're going to have a much colder house. You're going to be considering, in your lifestyle, you're going to be considering, what items am I going to turn off? What items am I going to turn off here to meet these carbon quotas? in the green movement micromanaging my life for me. Greenhouse gas emissions per household. I think this is all the carbon emissions that come from people who live in a house. That's it. 35% of those are just your normal household operations, and 32% of those is your transportation. 12% is that food. Yeah, 12% is cooking your food. Now remember when I showed you the document by Resolve that was saying it's going to be a very hard thing to do? Again, going back to that, the main things that you're going to be cutting back on is your household operations, as I said, under the green plans, the way that you cook your food and how you cook your food, and how you get around your car. If you've got a car or two cars, boy, you're in trouble. All carbon emissions ultimately can be traced back to the consumer, so that's you. The pressure's going to be on you in the coming green movement if you vote for it. So is that something that you want to? You want to be micromanaging your own life to that extent? I want to show you something quickly. Young British people spend £200 more on their first TV than they do on their first car. That was down here, I was showing you the TVs. Brits like big TVs. If you are going to have to be cutting back on your carbon emissions to meet your carbon quota that will come in under the Greens, then you think about how that's going to affect your life. You might say to yourself, at this moment in time, the British standard of living, the British way of life is you have a big TV. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with people enjoying themselves, enjoying their lives, and not thinking about things in a stressful way? But under the Greens, every single thing that you do in your house, you'll be thinking about it, and you'll be thinking how much money it's going to cost you. And if you go over your carbon quota, it's going to cost you a lot more money. So in the end, you might end up your whole family sitting around a tiny little TV trying to get a bit of entertainment, sharing a computer, not having the... Why should humans live like that? Not putting your tumble dryer on, not putting your hair straighteners on, not... it's basically trying to make a moral argument for some kind of Victorian era living, and try to take you back to the dark ages with your standard of life and your quality of life. So you're probably thinking, how would this be achieved? At this moment in time, I'll show you the most up-to-date information to let you know that it is possible for them to carry out and micromanage your life. There's been a drive to install smart meters around the world. Global smart meter installations to top 800 million by 2020. Smart meter revenues will grow to 4.5 billion in the next 4 years, according to a report from Telefonica. Asia and Europe will be major drivers of market growth, the report stated, predicting that more than 800 million smart meter devices will be installed worldwide by 2020. The smart meter, 80% of European households will have smart gas and electric meters installed by 2020, thanks to regulations that are driving employment of the technology. So we're already seeing the green agenda come through into fruition in some ways now. The smart meter and smart gas, I don't know if that's roughly the same thing. I don't think I've heard about that yet. They can probably be turned off at this central point. They could probably be turned off if they want to at the central point at the office. At the whoever provides your electricity for you can probably turn your electricity off from a central point at the company call centre. They can probably turn your smart meter and your smart gas off if they want to. So as I say about the green movement being friendly and nice on the face of it, but behind it the claws are opening up, and it's about fear, and it's about getting you to adhere to micromanaging your life. If you're not micromanaging your life in the correct way, and the Greens are still in power in, say, 5 years' time, 7 years' time, if you voted for them, trust me, they would, as I was saying about the neo-left and the neo-right, on the neo-left they'll use the Green movement to bring in kind of communism, socialism, where they take control of your life. On the right, they would maybe bring it in other ways, scare you into bringing it in by scaring you with terrorism or scaring you with war and saying, oh, if you don't sign up to these, there's not going to be any more security anymore, and then further down the line you find out that you had all your rights taken away from you. Well, the Green movement is doing the same thing, but it's doing it through micromanaging your life for you. Smart meters can be turned off at the central point by the company. Now, another thing that's coming in is the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things, basically, new washing machines, new fridges, new televisions, everything, all household appliances in the future are going to have their own IP address, and they're all going to connect to the internet and communicate with each other. So if your smart meter and your smart gas could be turned off at a central point, say you weren't meeting your carbon quotas, right? Now, people always think, see, when I bring things up to people, they always think that, oh, they're not going to be able to do that, they're not going to be able to do that, or even if they are able to do it, I'm going to be able to get away with it. People always think that they can get away with it. That's not going to be the case, because they're bringing in the Internet of Things, which is every single household item is going to be connected to the internet and relaying information to each other and to the companies at a centralised point. Say you weren't meeting your carbon quotas. It was common now for the companies to phone you up and say, oh, Mr. Smith, you're on your way to reaching your carbon quota this month. We advise that you don't watch the television for the next 5 hours. Now, people think, well, I just wouldn't answer the phone. If you don't answer the phone, and you've got the smart meter and you've got the Internet of Things, probably they're going to be able to, they'll probably just cut something off for you and get you to phone them if it's a problem for you. If they can't get a hold of you, they'll cut something off for you and basically force you to phone them, so you'll be forced into contacting them if the Internet of Things comes in. So the Internet of Things is a scenario in which objects, animals or people are provided with unique identifiers and the ability to transfer data over a network without requiring human to human or human to computer interaction. IoT has evolved from the convergence of wireless technologies, electromechanical systems and the internet. So every single household item in your smart meter is going to be connected to the internet. Now, notice in my most recent video when I was talking about the SNP and I was talking about the microchip under your skin, they're not only just saying the Internet of Things here and objects talking to each other, they're talking about animals and people as well, so that actually also does fit into the New World Order agenda that lots of people have found out about. It's basically not a conspiracy, but it's basically a proven fact, but if you don't know about it, I can't help you at this point. So if everyone's going to have a microchip, then people will also be connecting with the Internet of Things. Having the microchip, having all humans microchipped is part of the New World Order. A thing in the Internet of Things can be a person with a heart monitor implant, a farm animal with a biochip transponder, an automobile that has built-in sensors to alert the driver when tyre pressure is low, or any other natural or man-made object that can be assigned an IP address. So that's what it is. If you have a microchip under your skin, you might very well be also assigned an IP address. Infowars.com describes the Internet of Things as a dystopian nightmare where everyone and everything will be monitored on the internet. Can you imagine a world where your home, your vehicles, your appliances, every single electronic device that you own is constantly connected to the internet? And as I was saying, if it falls in with the green agenda, then they'll probably be making you fit your carbon quotas as I explained previously, it will be a very hard thing to do, and they will be putting the pressure on the consumer. This is how they will be able to do it to you in the coming years. They'll be able to put lots of pressure on you as a consumer. They'll probably be able to turn your devices off individually from source to get you to meet your carbon quotas. And the Greens will be interested in that, the Green movement will be interested in that, they'll be suckered into it. That's what always happens. Most of these movements are all co-opted now, I'm sad to say, but most of them are. I don't think UKIP are, coincidentally. That's why I support UKIP, because all I see in the media is UKIP getting hounded down, and on rare occasions they've actually deserved it, but probably a good 90% of the time they haven't deserved it, and that's why I trust UKIP, because they're not funded by big lobbyists, and the media are constantly hounding them, so that they must be doing something right. If the media, they want the modern mainstream media, which is basically, I think is it not basically owned by about 6 different companies? The whole worldwide thing it goes back to a central point of about 6 different companies controlling all the information in the world, and none of them like UKIP. It's a big thumbs up for me. Now, the Green movement will be interested in the Internet of Things under the auspices of caring about the world, but really it's just to get humans to fall into a globalist system. And even although they are showing the friendly face, they will be interested in the Internet of Things, they will be interested in micromanaging your life, and coincidentally, it's official, cell phones are killing bees. So having all this, if the Internet of Things comes in, right, you're going to have a lot of electromagnetic field, and what we don't actually know is how much that actually affects animals, how much it puts off their navigation systems, how much it affects them in ways that we don't understand. It's official, cell phones are killing bees. Scientists have found the cause of the world's dwindling populations of bees and cell phones may be to blame. Research conducted in Lausanne, Switzerland has shown that the signal from cell phones not only confuses bees but also may lead them to their deaths. Over 83 experiments have yielded the same result. Cell phone causes bees to swarm to their death, says a new study. Oh no! A Swiss research team conducted 83 experiments and found that mobile phone calls cause bees to leave their hive, become disorientated and die. The researchers measured the reaction of a beehive to a mobile phone when it was actively in a call, in standby mode and turned off. According to the article published in the bee journal Apidology, the bees responded violently to a mobile phone when it was in call. So if they're going to be bringing in the Internet of Things, and the Greens are telling you that they're caring about the animals, then having all this electromagnetic things around, humans are going to be affecting their environment very much so, in ways that they can't possibly understand, and it could affect the navigation systems of very complex animals that we still don't understand. And that's a sad thing. I don't think that we should. I think we've got the internet, it's a good thing, but I think we're actually reaching points now where we don't have to go past these points. It's not going to. Having the Internet of Things isn't going to make your life so much better that you want to be maybe perhaps affecting the world around you in a very negative way. Now, more information, more studies that this is an actual thing and it can hurt people is electromagnetic hypersensitivity. Electromagnetic hypersensitivity is a group of systems purportedly caused by exposure to electromagnetic fields. A more simplistic term used in medical literature is idiopathic environmental intolerance attributed to electromagnetic fields. I've actually seen programs where people have suffered from this, and usually I'm quite mistrustful of people and the information that I get, and it did look, these people were not kidding on. They were really they couldn't function on a normal daily basis with having the internet around them, with having the cell phones around them. They felt like they had a buzzing in their heads. They just could not continue their normal life, and the only thing that you can really do is move away to the countryside, and that's what these people who suffer from electromagnetic hypersensitivity. So it is an actual thing, and that's what the Green Movement will move towards, the Internet of Things, because that will allow them much easier to control your life and to micromanage your life for you. And it's harming the animals in ways that we don't understand. So on the face of it, the Greens are friendly, helpful, concerned about the environment, but there is a dark exterior behind that, and it's all about global governance, micromanaging your life. That's what it's all about, and returning you to a Victorian era lifestyle, and basically kind of force feeding you information that you should be grateful about it somehow. Right, I feel as if I can't go on and leave the end of the video without at least trying to debunk the whole entire prospect of climate change itself, because even though I've said things which would hamper your lifestyle, there's many people out there who would still, for philosophical reasons and dedication to the movement, they would say, well, we've only got one planet and we need to preserve it, we need to save it. So to show you that I am morally interested in what's happening in the planet, I'm morally interested in real science, what's actually happening in science. I don't have a problem with trying to save the environment, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but the behind the actual green movement itself, there's certain parts of it which is completely co-opted, and it's just in the hands of big business, the same as anything else, really. The latest information that I can find, the latest information that I know about very recently was that the US Senate voted on climate change, and they did accept that climate change was happening in one of the votes, but then the second vote, I think there was 3 separate votes. Do you think climate change is happening? The second vote is it man's fault? And then the third vote, I don't know exactly, I haven't looked into it. I haven't looked into it fully, but I'm just trying to give you a quick 15 minutes here, because there's lots of information that I have that would be able to kind of debunk the climate change movement and where it's going and who's actually behind it. I'm probably going to do another video on that another time, but I just want to try and give you a quick 15 minutes here about maybe debunking it in a very kind of quick and succinct way, so that you can see that I am interested in the environment. I do think if man can move towards greener energies, I don't see a problem with it, but not if it's going to be it has to be a measured response, not one that's blindly adhering to a dogma. The US Senate did accept that climate change was happening, that was their vote, but they said that it wasn't man's fault, and there was no scientific evidence that man was at the centre of it. Now, they're quite negative about it in this article, because the climate change movement is a very, very protected movement in the media, and that's because it comes from some of the most powerful people in the world, who are behind the most powerful companies in the world and the most powerful money sources in the world, and they own the media as well, and that's why they're trying to offset the damages of this. But the reason that I'm bringing this up is because the Greens want to make the whole world adhere to a 2-degree limit, but how are they going to do that if the US Senate just this year voted that it's not man's fault? So President Obama wants to put some of these green policies through, but he's not going to be able to do it. He's actually not going to be able to do it he's not getting enough support in the Senate, and he doesn't have enough support in the mainstream from the civilians that live in America. He just doesn't have enough support. So the Greens are saying to you that they're going to, one of the main things in their manifesto is to keep the temperature to a warming of 2 degrees in like the next 100 years. But but they're obviously going to have a very, very hard time even doing that, because the American political system and the American people are not particularly interested in it, and the US Senate has just voted that global warming might be happening, but it's not man's fault. Man's not responsible for it. Now, if you didn't know, I don't think that it is scientifically proven that climate change or global warming is happening. I'll show you some of the reasons for that. In 2009 there was the ClimateGate scandal. Climate change, this is the worst scientific scandal of our generation. Now, with the ClimateGate scandal, the University of East Anglia's Climatic Research Unit was the one that the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, they are the ones who put the University of East Anglia in responsibility for finding the Earth's temperature data to find out if warming actually is happening, and they came up with a famous thing called the hockey stick graph, and hackers hacked their emails and leaked them, and in these leaked emails it turned out that the information that they had found was actually manipulated. They didn't find that there was any warming, the information was manipulated, and they were also refusing FOI requests, freedom of information requests about the information, so that they actually broke the law in hiding the information. And that's why this man here is saying that it's climate change is the worst scientific scandal of our generation, because the main people who were actually put in control of finding whether warming was happening or not manipulated the data or hid any negative data that didn't support their theory. Temperatures conveyed by Michael Mann's hockey stick graph, which 10 years ago turned climate change history on its head by showing that after 1,000 years of decline, global temperatures have recently shot up to their highest level in recorded history, given star billing by the IPCC. Since 2003, however, when the statistical methods used to create the hockey stick were first exposed as fundamentally flawed by an expert Canadian statistician, Steve McIntyre, an increasingly heated debate has been raging. They have come up with every possible excuse for concealing the background data on which their findings and temperature records were based. This in itself has become a major scandal, not least Dr. Jones's refusal to relate the basic data from which the CRU derives its hugely influential temperature record, which culminated last summer in his startling claim that much of the data from all over the world had simply been lost. So that's them, I think, when they asked to see, well, what is your data, let's see it, they said it was lost. Most incriminating of all are the emails in which scientists are advised to delete large chunks of data, which, when this is done after receipt of a freedom of information request, is a criminal offence. The second and most shocking revelation of the leaked documents is how they show the scientists trying to manipulate data through their torturous computer programs, always to the point in only the one desired direction, to lower past temperatures and to adjust recent temperatures upwards in order to convey the impression of an accelerated warming. This comes up so often, not least in the documents relating to computer data, that it becomes the most disturbing single element of the entire story. The third shocking revelation of these documents is the ruthless way in which these academics have been determined to silence any expert questioning of the findings they have arrived at by such dubious methods, not just by refusing to disclose their basic data, but by discrediting and freezing out any scientific journal which dares to publish their critics' work. Back in 2006, when the eminent US statistician Professor Edward Wegman produced an expert report from the US Congress vindicating Steve McIntyre's demolition of the hockey stick, he excoriated the way in which the same tightly knit group of academics seemed only to collaborate with each other and to peer review each other's papers. So the actual people who were put in charge of finding the rise in temperatures by the IPCC were completely corrupt, and they manipulated all the data to prove this. That's bound to be what happens, to be honest. And if I gave you a job tomorrow, I was in the government and I gave you a job tomorrow to find that hot dogs were a healthy way of eating, they were a healthy foodstuffs, right? And I gave you a team of people to go and find out that, and I gave you 4 years. What you're going to do then for the next 4 years is only find information that supports the idea that hot dogs are a healthy foodstuffs. Now, if I come back to you at the end of the 4 years and I say, right, what information did you find? You're only going to show me the information that supports that idea, because if you don't show me that information, you're out of a job. You're out of a job at the end of it. So when you set up groups like that, basically they're bound to find the information that you want them to find, because if they don't find it, then basically you're out of a job. And these people followed that model exactly. They had any negative data, they pronounced the data that supported the theory even if it wasn't true, and they silenced their critics, they denigrated their critics. ClimateGate, the final nail in the coffin of anthropogenic global warming. When you read some of those files, including 1,080 emails and 72 documents, you realise just why the boffins at CRU might have preferred to keep them confidential. As Andrew Bolt puts it, this scandal could well be the greatest in modern science. These emails, supposedly exchanged by some of the most prominent scientists pushing the anthropogenic global warming theory, suggest conspiracy, collusion and exaggerating warming data, possibly illegal destruction of embarrassing information, organised resistance to disclosure, manipulation of data, private admissions of flaws in their public claims, and much more. One of the emails gloats about the death of a climate change skeptics, with one man saying, "In an odd way, this is cheering news." Okay, so this is some of the parts that were showing the manipulation of the data. I've just completed Mike's nature trick of adding in the real temps to each series for the last 20 years, i.e. from 1981 onwards, and from 1961 for Keith's to hide the decline. They had private doubts about whether the world was really heating up. The fact is that we can't account for the lack of warming at the moment, and it is a travesty that we can't. The Ceres data published in August supplement on 2008 shows there should be even more warming, but the data are surely wrong. Our observing system is inadequate. Suppression of evidence. Can you delete any emails you may have had with Keith, REAR4? Keith will do likewise, he is not in at the moment. Can you also email Gene and get him to do the same? Attempts to disguise the inconvenient truth of the medieval warm period. Phil and I have recently submitted a paper using about a dozen ANH records that fit this category, and many of which are available nearly 2,000 years back. I think that trying to adopt a time frame of 2000 rather than the usual 1000 addresses a good earlier point that Peck made with regards to the memo, that it would be nice to try to contain the putative medieval warm period, even if we don't yet have a hemispheric mean reconstruction available that far back. And most reprehensibly a long series of communications discussing how best to squeeze dissenting scientists out of the peer review process. I will be emailing the journal to tell them I'm having nothing more to do with it until they rid themselves of this troublesome editor. CRU's researchers were exposed as having cherry-picked data in order to support their untrue claim that global temperatures had risen higher at the end of the 20th century than at any time in the last millennium. Okay, so that's probably most of the things that I'm going to show you. So that's what they were saying in each other to the emails. The East Anglia Climate Research Unit, they were saying these things to each other in the emails to manipulate their data and prove that climate change was happening, there was a warming. Even if I take you to, some people have tried to then go back and kind of rewrite it all. That's what was in the actual emails. I've read it out to you. So I've brought you to the Wikipedia page because the climate change movement is such a protected movement that they've basically tried to rewrite the opinions on the climate change scandal, and they've tried to rewrite it. But I'll take you and I'll show you that even they admit the same things that that man was saying, but they try and reframe it in a way that is not damaging to the climate change movement. That's how much of a protected movement it is. They admit that it was said that the fact is that we can't account for the lack of warming at the moment, and it is a travesty that we can't. And they're saying it was part of a discussion on the need for better monitoring of the energy flows involved in short-term climate variability. Right. Okay. I don't think that's what it is. I think that's a load of scientific mumbo-jumbo to make you forget that the climate change movement was completely and utterly exposed. However, you can come and you can look at that yourself and make your own mind up about it, but I've shown you what several prominent people who were heavily invested, they're experts in the field, were heavily invested in keeping up with the information at the time, and their opinion was that it was the worst scientific scandal of our generation. The Climatic Research Unit is a component of the University of East Anglia and was one of the leading institutions concerned with the study of natural and anthropogenic climate change. With a staff of some 30 research scientists and students, the CRU has contributed to the development of a number of data sets widely used in climate research. So there you go, there you have it. One of the most prominent, probably the most prominent place that actually finds information on global warming was involved in a massive scandal that they manipulated the data that they found because they couldn't actually find any data that the world was actually warming in an alarming way. Now I'll take you to a look at all the records of climate change for 2013 to show you some of the things that's going on. So the year and the number of tornadoes, right? This is to show you that it's all just a mixed bag. There's actually no trend whatsoever to be found in the climate change movement. There's no trends whatsoever scientifically that we can actually base an opinion on. It's just a complete mixed bag, the way that you would expect weather to be. So in 2000 there was 1,072 tornadoes, in 2001 there was 1,219, in 2002 there was 938, in 2003 there was 1,300, then 1,800, then 1,200, then 1,100, then another 1,100, then 1,600, then 1,300, then 1,500, then 1,800, then back down to 1,100, and then 213 there was 771, so the lowest in that whole complete set of data. Wildfires. In 2014 there was 63,600, in 2005 there was 66,500, then there was 96,300, then there was 85,800, then there was 80,094, then there was 78,700, then there was 62,500, then there was 74,100, then there was 67,770, and then 2013 there was 40,300. So in a year where 63,000 wildfires occurred, it actually burned through 8,097,880 acres it burned through. In 2008, when there was a significantly more amount of wildfires, it actually only burned through 5,250 acres of trees, woods. Extreme heat, in addition to wildfires, extreme heat is also way down across the US this year. In fact, the number of 100-degree days across the country during 2013 is not only down for this year, but it is perhaps going to turn out to be the lowest in about 100 years of records. Hurricanes, finally, as far as hurricanes are concerned, keeping in mind that the season isn't over yet, there have only been 2 hurricanes so far this year in the Atlantic, and they were both short-lived and weak Category 1 storms. So there's no real data to be found, there is no alarming data whatsoever, it's just a complete mixed bag. And during this time, Al Gore was saying, the most powerful voice is that of Mother Nature. The increasing storm, floods, droughts and other extreme events. We are paying the cost of carbon every day, and we should put a price on carbon in markets and put a price on denial in the political system. So he's basically going off out in his mouth about increasing storms, floods and droughts, and there's no evidence to back up what he is saying. If Mr. Gore and his friends get their way, everyone will be paying money one way or the other. The plan is to bring the cost of coal, gas and oil up to the price of what is today called renewables through taxes, and making coal-fired power plants too costly to operate, much less build. That's what you'll get if you put the Greens in power. You'll get a destruction of industry. And it's not based on actual science, it's just to prop up the Green movement and to bring in all these various political power moves that they want to do, and to make certain people rich. Al Gore would be one of them. Al Gore could become the world's first carbon billionaire. He was involved in a company that was actually bringing in the smart meters that I was telling you about. He's not someone who's actually going about and really bothered about the world, he's more bothered about making money. Now, Al Gore, one of his best friends in business is actually someone who's high up in I think the guy's name might be Adam Blood, and he's very high up in the Goldman Sachs bank, and Goldman Sachs are kind of generally well regarded to be the most powerful bank in the world, which basically was the mastermind, or was the main bank at fault behind the 2008 financial crash. And they had it was their kind of policies that was administered, and they might have even had different agents or different people who were working these policies through other banks, but at the end of the day, from information that I've either listened to or found out about, it seems like the head of the beast was Goldman Sachs itself, and Goldman Sachs are heavily invested in the green movement. I'll take you to that now. How Goldman Sachs invented cap and trade. Now, cap and trade was a policy that was going to be passed in America, which is very similar to what the Greens are talking about in this country. It eventually didn't pass in America and it didn't get through. But the new carbon credit market is a virtual repeat of the commodities market casino that's been kind to Goldman, except it has one delicious new wrinkle. If the plan goes forward as expected, the rise in prices will be government mandated, and Goldman won't even have to rig the game, it will be rigged in advance. So the commodities market, I do find economics hard to understand. I know bits and bobs about it, but the commodities market is where they can do those credit default swaps, as far as I'm aware. I would have to look into it more clearly, but so they were doing those credit default swaps. It all went under, and that was one of the main reasons that the banks went under, because they were betting on products, they were betting on the stocks and shares. It's I think the credit default swaps is when you sell a stock or a share, you actually make a bet on it and say whether it's going to go up or whether it's going to go down. And that was one of the scandals, because Goldman Sachs were selling people mortgages that they told them were good mortgages, but actually in the credit default swap, the commodities market, whatever it might be, they were betting that the mortgages were rubbish and they were going to tank. They were doing two things simultaneously, telling their customers they were getting a good deal on the mortgages, but at the same time, really behind closed doors, they were betting that the mortgages were going to fail, and that's what happened. So these people are saying that the commodities market, the credit default swaps casino, was very, very good to Goldman Sachs. It was the green cap and trade that didn't actually pass in America. Here's how it works if the bill passes. There will be limits for coal plants, utilities, natural gas distributors and numerous other industries on the amount of carbon emissions they can produce per year. If companies go over that allotment, they will be able to buy allocations or credits from other companies that have managed to produce fewer emissions. President Obama conservatively estimates that about $646 billion worth of carbon credits will be auctioned in the first 7 years. One of his top economic aides speculates that the real number might be twice or even 3 times that amount. The feature of this plan has a special appeal to speculators in that the cap on carbon will be continually lowered by the government, which means that carbon credits will become more and more scarce with each passing year, which means that this is a brand new commodities market where the main commodity to be traded is guaranteed to rise in price over time. The volume of this new market will be upwards of $1 trillion annually. For comparison's sake, the annual combined revenues of all electricity suppliers in the US is a total of $320 billion. So that sounds very similar to what the Greens say in their manifesto that they want to do. They'll give the public half of these carbon credits and then they'll make the companies bid on the other half of the carbon credits. Sounds very, very similar, and it's linked to the commodities market and credit default swaps. Goldman wants this bill. The plan is 1. To get in on the ground floor of paradigm shifting legislation, 2. To make sure that they're the profit making slice of that paradigm, and 3. Make sure the slice is a big slice. Goldman started pushing hard for cap and trade long ago, but things really ramped up last year when the firm spent $3.5 million to lobby climate issues. So the same people who are lobbying the government to bring in climate cap and trade, which sounds very similar to what the Greens want to do in Britain, is probably one of the most widely hated banks in the world for starting the financial crisis and secretly betting behind their customers' backs that their mortgages were going to be a failure, but they were telling their customers that their mortgages were sound, otherwise why would they have taken them out? In 2005, when Hank Paulson was chief of Goldman, he personally helped author the bank's environmental policy, a document that contains some surprising elements for a firm that in all other areas has been consistently opposed to any sort of government regulation. Unfortunately, the people behind the climate change movement are some of the biggest crony capitalists in the known world. Now, another thing that you'll be interested to know is when Al Gore was running about telling the world that of the global warming alarmism, he actually bought a condo for $4 million in an area that he claimed would be underwater. In the end, Al Gore bought a 4 million condo feet from ocean in Fisherman's Wharf, San Francisco, a city he had explicitly warned about in An Inconvenient Truth. I heard about this from a couple of people, but I finally found the source, and here's the excerpt. It's based on what Al Gore said in his Inconvenient Truth. Al Gore said the polar ice caps will melt, sending 20 plus foot flood waves into coastal cities worldwide. But did you know that he bought a property in San Francisco near Fisherman's Wharf, only 4 feet from the ocean? I would say that if he believed that the seas were going to rise 23 feet, he would not have invested a great deal of money in such a property. So Al Gore's going around being alarmist, telling the world that the sea level's going to rise 23 feet, when in truth he's using his money behind the closed doors to buy a beachside condo, which, according to his own projections, should be underwater by now. So there you go, that's the kind of information that you get out of the green movement, the climate change movement. And I'll just take you and I'll show you one last thing. Some of the most recent information that we actually have, people talking about global warming, but they're perhaps not fully invested in the latest information. So this is actually from the Met Office, and it says the recent pause in warming. See that there hasn't actually been any warming for the last 15 years. July 2013, global mean surface temperatures rose rapidly from the 1970s but have been relatively flat over the most recent 15 years to 2013. This has prompted speculation that human-induced global warming is no longer happening, or at least will be much smaller than predicted. That kind of goes with what I was saying, that the temperature is mostly driven by the sun. The sun can go through warmer periods where it lets off lots of solar flares, and it can go through colder periods where we can tell that it's went through a bit of a colder period because there's not as many solar flares. And they're admitting that now. That's the Met Office is admitting that there hasn't been any warming for the last 15 years up until 2013. So there is no moral justification to make you completely change your lifestyle for something that is not properly backed up by science. I don't have a problem with trying to go more green or doing sensible things. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with solar panels. There's nothing wrong with green energy. But if we don't actually have the scientific data, do we really need to have wind farms everywhere, especially in areas that are naturally beautiful and are good for tourism? Is that a decision that we want to make when we know that the earth hasn't warmed for 15 years, but we're continually in your newspapers, you won't hear that story, but you'll be continually bombarded with negative global warming alarmism. That's what the phrase is, alarmism. You'll be consistently inundated with global warming alarmism, when the truth is the earth hasn't warmed for 15 years. It's in quite a steady period. As I showed you with all of these, it's actually a mixed bag when it comes to extreme events. And I'll show you one last thing. See some of the climate information that you get. See the most powerful computers that man currently has. It can only predict the weather accurately 5 days in advance, but see the global warming, the green movement and the climate change movement, it's based on computer models, and computer models predict things maybe 100 years in advance. Now, a computer model's a computer model, that's not science, and now they're admitting very, very recently that the computer models were wrong. Global warming has slowed and recent changes are down to natural variability, says the study. So science is even now admitting, it's climate change skeptics that have continually been talking about this, and now science is basically forced to come out and admit certain aspects that they were saying was just global warming alarmism. And perhaps some of this alarmism was so that they could help Goldman Sachs bring in their global cap and trade. That, according from what I can see in the Green Manifesto, the Greens also want to have carbon quotas, which seems to be a form of that much hated bill that was didn't get through in America, the cap and trade that was going to make Goldman Sachs one of the richest banking groups in the world, was going to make them a lot richer. Now, as I said, it's still a protected movement though, so if I was to read through that, you would start seeing again the protectionism coming in to protect global warming. Global warming hasn't happened as fast as expected. On a new study based on 1,000 years of records, the research claims that natural variability in surface temperature over the course of a decade can account for increases and dips in warming rates. And then they go, even though they're admitting that their own models are wrong, and models are just models, that's not accurate science. The most accurate scientific computers that we have can only predict the weather mildly accurately to a maximum of 5 days in advance, and they were trying to scare you with these climate models based on weather that was 100 years in advance. So again, the protectionism comes in to protect the movement, and it says, but it adds that these so-called climate wiggles could also in the future cause our planet to warm up faster than anticipated. Oh no! So they're basically admitting everything that we've seen up to now has been wrong, but you should still be scared, because it could be even worse than we thought. We're wrong in what we've said, our scientific data is wrong, we've reported it in an alarmist way, we've tried to silence our critics, we've stopped freedom of information requests, but we're still right, and it could be even worse than we said. And that is also similar in nature to when I was showing you the Green Manifesto, and it said we need to keep the Earth temperature rise to 2 degrees within the next 100 years, or everyone's going to die and the world's going to blow up. But actually, when you looked into the detail of it, they became very authoritarian, and they were saying, well, you know, it should really be 1.5 degrees, but we'll let you off this time. So that's what it is. Behind the scenes, the green movement, the climate change movement, the global warming agenda is actually just about making rich people rich and bringing people into a more type of socialist, communist type system. And that's going to be their moral basis for doing it, is the green movement. And it's going to be very authoritarian, because each time you peel back the layers and you scratch the surface, you realise that they're very authoritarian in what they want to do. So that's why the Greens, basically you shouldn't vote for the Greens. I'm just going to say it outright. Anyone would be better than the Greens, to be honest with you, but especially UKIP. So I've warned you about the Greens, I've warned you about SNP, I've warned you about the economy in my previous videos, and saying that both Labour and Conservative are no good for the economy, and I think that UKIP are the best going forward for the economy, and in comparison to SNP and the Greens, the other alternative vote parties, they're far superior. In the future I'll maybe perhaps make another video that's much more detailed in nature, but that was just a kind of small condensed 15 minutes there to try and show you some of the most succinct ways that the climate change movement, the global warming movement, is actually fake. Okay, thank you. Bye.